All right. So, could you introduce yourself to me? Who you are, what you do, whatever you really want to say, honestly.
What's happening? My name is Derrick Freeman. I'm a local artist, musician, here representing New Orleans culture. 30 years, and still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through your musical beginnings? Like, so you're not from New Orleans originally, right?
I'm originally from Houston, Texas.
Okay.
I grew up in Houston. I went to art schools from like fourth grade on. So I started out playing piano when I was very young, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and then at some point I switched to the drums. But along the way, throughout my schooling, I learned most of the instruments I played at some point. And then I got a scholarship, full scholarship to go to UNO. I was recruited by Ellis Marcellus out of high school, which I think was by accident. I was fortunate enough to, the piano player in my high school jazz combo was Jason Moran. It's like very, award-winning jazz pianist. So I'm pretty sure Ellis was trying to recruit him to come to UNO. So I just got a scholarship by proxy, luckily. And that's pretty much how my journey started here. I definitely wasn't planning on staying in New Orleans. I don't even think I was planning on finishing college here. I think I was just trying to, most of my friends that I graduated high school with, musicians, even the non-musicians, like I said, because I went to art school, so a lot of my friends right out of high school went to New York City or to Boston or DC or Los Angeles, places like that. So it's sort of my intent as well, like I want to go to, still I'm going to Berkeley College of Music, and I want to go to Howard University. And I actually got accepted to a bunch of colleges from this art contest I did when I was a senior in high school. But I was kind of turned off. I really want to be a classical musician, but I also did musical theater. So playing jazz was sort of a means to an end with that. I really wanted to go to Juilliard. It was sort of a pipe dream, but also sort of not. Like a few of the kids from my high school actually got into Juilliard. Of course, I didn't get in, but but I did get into like Oberlin and Carnegie Mellon and a few other places. But again, I didn't know anything about Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan or any of these other places, so I wasn't trying to do that. And then again, I think initially I decided I wanted to go to Howard, but I kind of applied too late. And the UNO thing, I just had a counselor that, that told me UNO was looking for people. Then, like I said, Ellis came to my high school to do a clinic. It's a long story, but anyway, come to find out, I ended up getting a full scholarship to UNO. My mom got wind of that, so.
Okay, so mom found out first?
Yeah. She didn't find out first, I just withheld the information.
Okay.
But then she found out. And then, so, that's kind of how I ended up here. And like I said, my plan was to move to New York as soon as possible. Like I thought I was only gonna be here for 2 years, and that was 33 years ago now.
Yeah, had you been here before?
Yeah, actually I came here in high school for an IAJE conference, the International Association of Jazz Educators. I think that's what it stands for.
Okay.
Which they still have, because they had it maybe a year or two ago, and there was a bunch of kids from my high school here.
Oh, cool.
But it rotates cities every year, so at some point I think maybe I was a sophomore in high school, and my whole jazz band came here, and we got in a lot of trouble. Because the drinking age was still 18, so some of the guys were legal, so we had, we stayed out all night. It was a situation. So I had been here, I think when I was 15 with the band. But it was never, like I said, I wasn't really planning on going to college here or staying here for any extended amount of time. So
yeah,
I mean, sucked me in real fast.
Yeah, I was about to say, I guess maybe talk me through how, 33 years later, what sort of happened, I guess.
Yeah, I was just in school. I mean, my first year or two, I was just going to UNO, studying just like a normal college student. And UNO, where it is geographically, you know, I think my first apartment was in Gentilly, or maybe New Orleans East.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent maybe the most part of my first 3 or 4 semesters at UNO, I spent either 7th Ward, Gentilly, or New Orleans East. So I didn't really know all of New Orleans, you know. Like I think one of our friends started dating a girl at Loyola, then we ended up like finding Uptown and being like, whoa, they have trees up here, you know. So I was kind of, again, I was trying to figure out a way to get the hell out of New Orleans, because sort of a culture shock for me, but not in the way you think, like just more of like, again, I went to an art school even though I was in Texas. Like we had a transgender teacher and like so many gay kids, and also like the different rich kids, poor kids, you know. So it was I was exposed to all those things earlier on. And so New Orleans in the early '90s is still very, I don't want to say segregated, but it was like, you know, it was people weren't ready to accept all that stuff yet here. Still, you know, like the Deep South situation. So the vibe wasn't the vibe I wanted. You know, even though I was enjoying studying with Ellis and Harold Baptiste and Victor Goins and all these people, Ed Peterson, I was trying to leave. But then what happened was I had a good friend named William Terry, who you might know, he does the Bayou Soap now. He's the Bayou Soap guy.
Yeah, you're talking about.
But Will Terry's an excellent musician. He plays saxophone, sousaphone, bass, all kind of things. So he was maybe a year or 2 older than me at UNO. And one day he was like, he's got a real deep voice. And one day he was like, hey man, you gotta go to Joe's with me. He was talking about Joe's Cozy Corner, in the corner of Ursuline and North Robertson in the Tremaine. And I went there, and that's when it changed for me. Cause like I think I met Kermit Ruffins, James Andrews, Corey Henry, Tuba Fat, Uncle Lionel. Like I met all these people kind of at once. I was like, oh, okay, now I see what's happening. So that was my vibe, was hanging out in Tremaine, literally just hanging out every day. I had a good friend, Charles Taylor, rest in peace. He died when we were in our 20s. He was a bad dude. He played alto saxophone. He had went to Berkeley for a little while. Was back in New Orleans. He was my neighbor, and I used to drive him to the Tremaine every day to rehearse with the Little Rascals brass band. So I hung out with them a lot. I never played in that brass band, I just hung out with them. And I would play gigs with Tremaine brass band every once in a while and just hang out. So that's kind of what changed my attitude about trying to leave. And then you know,
Like
3 decades went by.
yeah, that's interesting. I'm thinking about part of what you said. I did a bunch of interviews this week. One of my buddies is doing the campaign for Black Pride NOLA, so we were talking to like a couple of like I guess like it's like Black queer historians of New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like you saying it's segregated. That's what it kind of seemed like. It seemed like every group had their area. It's like it all existed. It was all here.
Yeah.
But they weren't, you know, white people was over here, black people was over here, queer people was over there.
Right.
And like Creole people were in their whole spot.
Right. So that was strange for me coming from an art school environment where it was like very inclusive to having that, you know.
And I mean, when you were a kid, how big was Houston? I mean, obviously I know it's grown.
It was still pretty big, I mean, especially compared to New Orleans. I mean,
Right.
It was at least 1 million. It wasn't
Okay.
7 or whatever it is now, but it was at least. Houston has grown exponentially.
But I'm even thinking about
but it was still I think it was still the 4th or 5th biggest city in the country at the time.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about it. Like you coming from a place that large, I could imagine you come here and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it
Like,
was
how are y'all not all?
It was like, well, yeah, it was like, to me, it was like backwoods Alabama or something. To, you know, like I just, any accents, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I thought everybody was ignorant, everybody, you know, I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, you had to like orient yourself.
Yeah, it was a strange thing for me. And UNO actually at the time wasn't as transient as it is now. Like it was mostly locals, you know. Like they had a bunch of jazz musicians like me from other parts of the country that Ellis had recruited. And then like the engineering school was maybe a year or 2 old, so they had a bunch of, you know, like Southeast Asian people in the engineering part. And then they had a hotel restaurant management department. There seemed to be a lot of like Latinx people were in that. So besides those 3 departments, which were like the newest ones at UNO at the time, it was pretty much all locals.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like a normal college. It wasn't like going to Tulane or going to LSU or, you know what I mean? It wasn't like that at all.
No.
It was very like local, sort of like a commuter college.
I mean, still is.
Vibe, you know what I mean? So it didn't, so that part was weird, trying to be like, do college-y things.
But you don't have it.
Yeah, it didn't really exist. So, I mean, for me, I just started gigging. So then that was my life. All my extracurricular things were just going to play gigs, you know what I mean? Which is like, you know, ingratiating myself in the culture, which I didn't think of it like that when I'm 18, 19, 20. And a lot of legends. Like, I ended up playing with a lot of legends of New Orleans music before the age of 30. No, I had no idea. It was just like, you know, old high guy, old drunk guy, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, actually, that's Ernie Cato. That's what I'm like, oh, shit, really? Like, oh, damn. Like, yeah, I played games. I didn't know, you know? So it was a blessing. And, you know, and as I got older, I realized how much I was blessed to be part of that. Like, because I came early enough to where a lot of the old people were still here and still gigging, you know? And so I got to be a part of that. But
I mean, that's like when I like look back at the old photos of me with art. And that's how I feel. I'm like,
same thing.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
I'm like now as an adult, I'm like, what the fuck? But then it was like, all right, just weird old guy who really likes Star Trek and oysters. So I was like, shout out art. You know?
I mean, I took a picture with you with Dr. John. I think you were like 8 years old.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
He's like holding you. Like, all
right.
I'm like, Miles, get in there.
I'm like, okay. Or like, there's like, there's a bunch of random shit like that.
Yeah,
my parents tell the story. There was like one time I was like 2, and like Master P like helped change my diaper or something crazy.
Yeah,
Like, what the
there
fuck?
was you were.
I was just around.
Yeah.
You know. But actually, so one of the things you said at the end, kind of, I'm gonna jump a question here. Do you remember your first gig here? Do you remember where it was? Or if not, do you remember like?
No, I remember it so vividly.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's hilarious.
If you remember what it sounded like or smelled like or all that, I'd love all those details.
I remember it so vividly. So, you know, they gave me a full scholarship, and again, like I thought New Orleans people were ignorant. So, me at 18, extremely cocky, smart kid, I was like, oh, I'm about to fucking crush it here. Then I'm like, well, they gave me a full scholarship because I'm the best drummer here, obviously. So, whatever. So, I came in kind of hot. And I think Victor Goins wanted to like knock me down a peg. And he was like, you know what? I got a gig for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember the gig was on 3rd Street in the Garden District, which is ironic because I live like 3 blocks from there right now, and where this gig was. It's like one of the mansions on 3rd in the Garden District.
Okay.
And he didn't tell me how to get there. You know, this is just before internet. So I'm like, I don't know. Now, thank God, Jason Stewart, who's a bass player who still lives in New Orleans, from New Orleans. Him and this guy Ian McPhail lived on Magazine somewhere, like somewhere between 3rd and 1st or something. So they were like, "Oh, that's down the street from my house. Like, if we'll get you to that. We'll make sure you get to that gig. We'll come bring your shit to my house, whatever." So I remember walked all my drums over to this mansion or whatever. Where it's, you know, it's like one of these industry parties. You know, so there's all these rich people there, which I was completely oblivious to. I'm just like stoked, and I'm like, who's on this gig? So it was like, turns out the gig, George French was on bass, Emile Vanette on piano, Jermaine Basil, Victor Goins, and I think Thaddeus Richard. And I was like, oh shit, like, turns out I'm subbing for Brian Blade, which I wasn't Brian Blade at the time, you know. So their expectations is Brian Blade, you know. And then like, there were coming all these songs I never heard of, and at some point George French was like, give me a street beat, and I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. And he was like, second line group. I was like, huh? And I'm like, oh, like the Shannon Powell thing, because I was following it, and they were like, they all laughed. They were like, yeah, sure, play the Shannon Powell thing. So I'm like, all right. And it's like, it's bad, it's real bad, and like, Jermaine Basil being fucking pissed, because she's like really a perfectionist, and you know, I gained her approval later in life, but she was somebody I was always wanted to make sure, like I wanted her to tell me I sounded good just from this very moment. So like it was a disaster for me. Like I was really bad on this gig, and they, you know, they were all like, I think they were kind of pissed at Victor too, because they were like, why did you bring this motherfucker? You know. So I'm sorry for cursing.
Nah, I don't care.
Whatever. So I remember that being humbled right off the bat, being like, oh shit, like, and then having to figure it out, like, well, I gotta figure out what a street beat is. And then they were like, yeah, you gotta meet this dude, Johnny V. Like, you need to go talk to him immediately. Like, so I did. I went and found Johnny V. Went to, so then I figured out what I was doing. But yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday, being like completely humbled. Like, I think that was like the 4th or 5th day I was here or something. It was like early on.
Yeah, they threw you to the wolves.
Yeah, big time.
You mentioned, kind of playing with and being around the legends. Is there anybody like from that time period you kind of feel the most proud of that you got to play with? And maybe a bunch of dudes, but I just kind of thought.
Yeah, Lloyd Lambert stands out. He's a legendary bass player that played on like all these classic rock and roll records. And I don't know, he's just an old dude that played bass to me, And then so many people I just mentioned, George French, rest in peace, Emil Bennett, rest in peace. I got to play a lot of gigs with Emil, with Kermit years later. Danny Barber I got to play with a couple of times. Like, again, didn't really know who he was. Like, I knew the name, and that he's important, but didn't realize the significance of like playing a gig with him at like Palm Court. You know what I mean? Just there. And I probably was subbing for Shannon, who knows. But yeah, Walter Payton was a big influence of mine. And I think he was the first guy to like take me on the road, like to Europe. Like, I was still a teenager and I was in like Germany, stuff playing gigs with him. So yeah, it was then it was John Brunius, who was one of Brunius' older brother. Like I said, Ernie Cato, Snooks Eaglin. Like it was a lot of dudes.
Yeah.
That I played with when I was young. Yeah.
How would you describe what the New Orleans music scene was like before Katrina? And I'm kind of curious, were there like venues or clubs or areas that were like your home base? And what's come of those places? That's a lot.
Well, that's the thing. There was not a lot of places to play. There was a lot of little bar rooms, like little hole in the walls. Played a lot of gigs at a bunch of like little hole in the walls. That shit doesn't really exist anymore like it used to. As far as like clubs, there was Cafe Brazil, and then shortly after that there was Cafe Istanbul, which is now Blue Nile, and then they had Snug Harbor, and that was pretty much it on Freshman Street. Apple Barrel, but like this was Spotted Cat hadn't been built yet. This is long before DBA came, long before any of that shit. None of those other clubs were there. Yeah, the 3 clubs on Freshman. Then they had a place called Benny's that was uptown. Which is kind of like a block away from where Le Bon Ton is. Now Le Bon Ton was still there. Maple Leaf. All uptown. Most of the clubs were uptown. Which is ironic, there's like no clubs uptown now. But like at the time, it was like a lot of like Benny's, Le Bon Ton. There was Muddy Waters, Maple Leaf, Jimmy's. So there was a lot of, and then downtown there was just a lot of hole in the walls. Like there was Joe's and there was Little People's Place, shit like that. Vaughn's, started playing at Vaughn's pretty early. I think Vaughn's must have started around 94-ish. So that was but like Freshman Street changed a lot. Like when I was first playing gigs down there, it was like not safe. Like myself and Neil Kane is a bass player who still plays with Harry Connick to this day. Me and Neil Kane got carjacked. Freshman, you stole my drums out of the car. It was a different vibe, And I guess more competitive because there was, like I said, there wasn't that many places to play, and it was very under the radar. To answer your question, like the scene was insulated, and people, it was like highly respectful of each other, and very very under the radar. Like there used to be a lot of like equivalent of, I guess they would be like reality TV stars now. There was like these fringe kind of like people that lived in New Orleans, lots of them, because they could hide out down here, So there was like a lot of that going on back then. It felt very secretive and like don't tell nobody. Like the world has no idea what's going on down here, we're kind of sustaining our own, kind of making a living just doing that shit. And then this was in the '90s, so record companies still had money. They were still signing people, so a lot of New Orleans bands got signed and went all over the place. But as New Orleans bands, which became a detriment later because this is like a forced marketing into a certain, you got to sound and look a certain way for it to be considered New Orleans.
Yeah.
So that kind of stifled our musical growth.
And my dad will talk about that. He'll be in other parts of the country, and they'll be like, "Well, you don't play music that sounds like New Orleans."
Right.
And he's like, "Well, I live in New Orleans,
Right, I
so
don't know what to tell you, right?
yeah, like,
Exactly. So that was, and then, after Katrina, it kind of all, like when I was playing with Kermit right after Katrina, the two, I would say 06, 07, 08, it was like every weekend, like Travel Network, Food Network, HBO, ABC, Disney Channel. It was just like every type of thing, every type of food show, travel show, drinking show, scripted show, a non-scripted show, just everything. And then people start coming out here in droves, like it was just like, and the scene got kind of saturated. Then there was clubs everywhere, there was musicians everywhere. It's like, which was like, it was a joy and kind of at first, just kind of didn't see the writing on the wall, but it was like, this is great, like the scene's blowing up, but it's also getting diluted. And that's the part I didn't really realize till later. Like, kind of wish all those people never came. Really, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Aaron told a story. He was with Cyril, and somebody walked up and was like, I've been down here about a year. Love the Neville Brothers, love you, the whole thing, yada yada yada. And then Bro's like, yeah, one of my friends just told me about a Booker fella. And like Aaron was like, so you could just feel Cyril's whole thing change. And then that was kind of the thing Aaron said. He was like, you don't want to be disparaging of the people that have come because, like, all right, respect you, you're trying to do your thing, but also, what does it end up meaning, right? What's the impact? What would you say is, like, you kind of touched on it a little bit. What would you say was lost? What do you say has been preserved? It hadn't been just lost, right? I'm assuming.
It's kind of twofold to me because I think a lot of the things I thought that had been lost have kind of come back around, and it's very easy to explain. I'm like, it's Katrina, is what did it to it because so when Katrina hit, I was 30, 31, right? So I was just getting to the age where I was thinking about mentorship and blah blah blah. Like even now, there's like I just got to the age where there's actually musicians younger than me. Like I'm the second youngest, but I'm not the youngest. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh okay, like I have different insight on what I need to. You know what I mean? It's like but by us getting shipped out to the diaspora and like the amount of years it took us to get back, like whatever I was supposed to pass down to somebody 10, 12, 15 years younger than me didn't happen because I was trying to get my shit together. So then like there's this gap in when it comes to New Orleans music anyway. Like if people that are around 10, 12, 15 years younger than me that like don't have no knowledge of it. But the guys that are like 20 years younger than me like have more of the language. So to me it's pretty obvious Katrina is the thing that did that. You know what I mean? But like the babies of the people that are my age that have come back have kind of like brought it back. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of guys your age that are like killing playing in Preservation Hall, blah blah blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that makes me feel better because it's not as doomed as I thought it was maybe 10 years ago. As far as like lineage and whatever preservation, but it's still diluted. Like I was telling this story, like there's always been brass bands and like New Orleans type bands all over the world because musicians, promoters, whatever, they all have an reverence for New Orleans. So like there's lots of festivals that have a New Orleans stage or New Orleans theme or whatever, So it's part of it. But so for years, all over the world, all over the country and all over the world, we hearing other brass bands. Most of them are not that good. Some of them pretty good. But what you would hear is these European brass bands and they would try to sound like Rebirth or they try to sound like Dirty Dozen or they try to sound like the Soul Rebels. But now, when you hear the European bands, they sound just like the white boys from New York and California that play brass band music here. So it's being diluted here and then it's being disseminated throughout the world as New Orleans culture.
But through that dilution.
Through the dilution.
That makes sense.
So that's the problem. So that people come and then they think they're experts on something that has nothing to do with what it really is. So
Yeah,
that's the part that's concerning to me.
Yeah, that's a bit of a crisis. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the age group stuff. I mean, two of the dudes that I know that are doing really well my age, Orlando, Gilbert, and Brian Richburg,
John Michael.
Yeah.
There's people. That's what I'm saying. Like
Noel
Cooper. These people I've known since people I've known as long as I've known you, since they were 4, 5, 6 years old.
Right.
So now they're approaching 30. So different. All I'm saying is, but the people that are like that are in between me and you.
Yeah, like 40.
There's a
40s.
A lot of them didn't get it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that makes
a lot of them just didn't. Most of them, a lot of them just lived in Texas now, where they just never came back.
Right.
So there was just a gap.
Yeah, I mean, we lost what 100,000, several 100,000 people.
Right.
You know, in a place that was already small.
Right. It was just a gap.
You kind of mentioned earlier. I mean, you're kind of saying it now too, like the sort of teaching and learning. And you talked about that first gig and how you basically were like not prepared and they threw you to the wolves. How do you learn that feel for New Orleans music? Like not just playing it. Like how does that get passed on? How do you learn it? You know, is there?
You know, people ask me this question all the time. And you know, there's no gimmick, there's no trick to it. You really just gotta live it. It just comes with being here because like whatever's in the air or in the water or it just makes you move a certain kind of way. You know, because you travel a bunch. You know, you could if you could scan a room of 100 people, you could pick out the 2 people from New Orleans real easy.
Oh yeah.
Like in a second, you're like, they from New Orleans. I ain't gonna talk to them already. No, I can hear. You know what I mean?
I make the joke we're like roaches.
Huh?
We're like roaches.
Yeah.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, we pop up everywhere too. One or two of us everywhere you go. You're like, you're like, I see them.
Dad and I were in Talkeetna, Alaska before I moved out to Fairbanks, summer 2021. Talkeetna is like a tiny fucking little town. It's not even really a town. It's like a tourist town.
Right.
Lo and behold, 2 random motherfuckers from New Orleans, their kids going to ULM. I'm like, what? I'm like, all right. Like, thanks, guys.
It's a thing. So, yeah, you know, it's about you gotta live it. That's one thing about New Orleans music. You gotta live it. You know, and I was like, unlike some young people now. Not to throw you under the bus, because I don't even feel like you're like this, but a lot of people in your generation are, I don't know if they're scared, they don't have the ability to, but like, they don't know how to communicate with elders, you know? Like, I was like a sucker for that. Like, I wanted to know what the old cats said, how they thought, what they thought of me. Like, I was like obsessed with that part of it. So, I was really trying to learn everything from that perspective, you know? And again, advantage or disadvantage, whatever, like, there was no Google, so I'm like, I gotta find out, like, you know. That's how I met Danny Barker, because I just asked Ellis a random question about the hi-hat versus the low boy, you know, like, you play a drum set, the modern drum set has a hi-hat on it, but it used to be a thing called the low boy, that you just play with your foot, right? And I'm like, well, who figured out to make it long? And there was a New Orleans drummer named Joe Jones, and the reason why I found this out is because, well, Ellis was like, call this number and ask this guy. But the number he gave me to call was Danny Barker. Oh. I'm like, hey, Ellis told me to call you and ask you this question.
He's like, all right.
And he's like, come by my gig and come sit in. I'm like,
okay. No, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, truthfully, that's just as simple as like you say the whole you care about it. I mean, that's why. Right. I mean, right? Like, so whenever I make a dissertation, right, I'm gonna have to at the beginning of I'm gonna cut this now because I.
That started post Katrina. Now everybody's on display. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you know. And people were like, you know, just like, okay, like, none of this shit was for show. It is very entertaining, it's very showy, it's colorful, like, baby dolls and Indians and brass bands are very colorful, very bright, but it's never for a show, that was just part of the culture, but now it's like a show, people coming to see the bright, fuzzy thing, it's like, okay, but like, do you know the connotations of this? What does this mean to you? Because they don't mean that to any of us at all, you know, it's like, so, what the fuck is going on here, you know?
Yeah. I was like, wait. It's like, what are y'all thought? I mean, it's the way this is not even related to music, but it's the way I feel about painting and the way people paint houses now.
Right.
It's like, I can tell immediately by the paint who owns it.
Right.
Like, very quickly, I'm like, oh, okay, you're not from here.
Right.
Like, you went white and gray.
Right.
You know, this is boring. Like, you're, you fuck the vibe up.
Exactly.
And the joke I always make, I'm doing another project that's about, I've basically photographed all the houses in Carrollton and I've counted the colors of the homes and I'm going back and looking at which blocks they're all on, and the closer you get to Broadway, the closer you get to St. Charles, it's white.
Yeah.
Like both, like racially.
Right, yeah, right.
But the joke I always make is like right now, go walk around, go look at the area code on the for rent. It's like 229, it's like 226.
Right,
it's like a bunch of fucking places. Where the fuck is that?
Right.
Like, I don't know these, and that sucks. At least I think it sucks. What do you think's been the hardest part of, has it been harder to sustain a music career here post-Katrina? Is it different? I mean, I know you said that the clubs, there's more clubs maybe.
Harder. Yes, but only because the cost of living went up. See, that's the other thing about the 90s, is that like I stayed on Magazine Street for a bunch of years and my rent was $250. See what I'm saying? And like, so like, even when I had random restaurant jobs or whatever kind of jobs, I only had to do that shit part-time. It's like I still make enough gigging to pay my rent and my bills in like 3 days, you know what I mean? So that, I mean, all the investors and the promoters and the interlopers and the fucking, they made this shit expensive. So, which thus making it harder to make a living. So yeah, it is harder now.
I mean, you basically answered my next question. My next question was going to be how have the changes affected your ability, but I mean, it sounds like it's mostly an economic-based thing, that gets in the way.
I mean, it's obviously physically harder now too. I mean, I'm sure Aaron talked about it too. I mean, being a drummer in your 50s is not like, I mean, it's awesome, but it's not like incredible, and like, to me, it's I don't want to say alarming, but I'm very concerned / intrigued about the future of myself and of Aaron and all of us. Because I'm like, what is an old drummer in New Orleans? I mean, you got Herman Riley, who's, I think is an anomaly. Because I don't like, most people don't get better at their craft at age 70 or whatever, but somehow he, like, I thought at some point I would be as good as him. And I'm like, I'm 50. So what? I guess that's not gonna happen. So it's like, there was Johnny V, who was in his 70s who gigs every day. But besides that, I mean, most of the drummers didn't make it till 70. You know what I mean? And then, so I think about that a lot. I'm like, divesting in other things, as an artist that are more sustainable than physically having to play drums 3 times a week. So that's it. It's not like Chicago where like they take care of the old blues people and all that, and they have like, there's a lack of that here, So it's like, and like people, especially cats a generation, 2 generations older than me, like didn't understand publishing and copyrights and shit. So a lot of them didn't make the money they were supposed to make, So I think we've all learned more about that just out of. I mean, I had to sign contracts with HBO and blah, blah, blah. So I got to figure some shit out. I can't just give all my shit away. So I learned, but I'm concerned about, just well-being and being able to sustain.
So when you talk about the divestment, I mean, how do you divest it? You're like changing your career a little bit, I presume?
Yeah, just being, DJing, voice over, whatever, acting, writing, podcasting, other things, just branching out, just sort of things I can be, I can still do when I'm 75 years old. I would like drag drums up to somebody's stage and play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's sad to me, and I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging the older drummers, because that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just concerned about that. Yeah. For me.
No, I mean, I think
I'm like, I don't know if I want to be 75 years old playing drums at a Make Believe. Maybe every once in a while.
Yeah.
But not like all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like it's sort of unbelievable that like, you mentioned the drummers who keep getting better. Like it's kind of crazy to go watch Porter sometimes because I'm like, how are you still this good? Like, dude, you're old as shit. Like I think about it with him. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you tour a lot.
A lot.
And you're an old dude. Like, man, shout out to him. But what was you how long did you do Tremaine? You were on the show, right?
I was on Tremaine the whole time. Cause I was in the show several times. I did voiceovers for like the whole 4 seasons.
What was that experience like?
I did some music for it. For me, it was one is very familiar because like I said, I grew up doing musical theater, so that was one of my passions. Like, and I didn't know, like when I graduated high school, like being a jazz drummer, maybe 4th or 5th on my list. Like it was just like, maybe I'm gonna be on Broadway, or I want to play classical music, or you know what I'm saying, or you know, so I don't know. But in my head, it was all about New York. Like whatever I gotta do in New York, obviously. You know, so like, but like I said, I was lucky. Or like I said earlier, I started gigging pretty much immediately. So then it was just like, oh, I guess I'm a drummer by default here. Like this is what's happening. So you know, but like I always seen myself as a stage performer, actor, voice actor, all that. So when I got the opportunity from Tremaine, I was like, oh, I'm ready for this. So then like HBO signed me. I had a 4-year contract with them. And I did several things with them, and all kind of audition shows, whatever. And had since, you know, and then for that time period from around 2010 to 2014, before Jendo fucked it all up, like I was rolling. I was in like probably 8, 10 different TV shows during that time. So for me, it was a natural thing to do that.
No,
that was part of what I wanted to do growing up anyway.
Yeah, it was a dream of yours already.
Yeah.
What are your hopes and worries for like the next generation of musicians here?
Well, again, like I said earlier, I'm more hopeful than I was 10 or 12 years ago. Because of the Orlandos and the, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, cool, we're gonna be all right. Like, it's fine, you know? But I always worry for them, you know, because I'm like, shit, like, what's it gonna be like when those dudes turn 50? Like, I don't know, man. So, hopefully, you know, they'll divest their talents and energy so they can sustain, you know. But I'm pretty hopeful. I think at this point, like, things have gotten so diluted that it has to go the other direction. You know what I mean? Because I've seen it happen in other places. I've seen it happen in New York, Brooklyn. I've seen it happen in San Francisco. I've seen it happen in a few other places where it's just like shit got completely whitewashed and then it starts to come back. So I don't know. Hopefully we've reached the end of the dilution because it's pretty diluted now. And like the thought of New Orleans just becoming a regular American place is crazy to me.
I can't, like my brain can't accept that.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like I can't. We can't be Birmingham or Kansas City or whatever, or Charlotte. There's not.
Or Omaha.
Yeah,
or the fuck.
No, it's not. No, and speaking of Omaha, interesting take. So.
Okay.
Now, one thing I found since pandemic, you know, is that the country, something happened. So like all the places we love to go got kind of shitty. Like New Orleans got kind of shitty. San Fran, LA, New York, all got kind of shitty.
Seattle.
Seattle. But then somehow, like around 22, 23, like Fayetteville, Arkansas got nice. Omaha got nice. Tulsa got nice. Like, wait.
That's true.
It's like, what is happening? It's like we went to tour in some of these places. I was like, yo, this is.
Like, what the fuck?
They're like, will you come back to Omaha? I'm like, I will come back to Omaha.
You're like, yeah, I'm fucking with this.
Fucking nice ass hotel, good ass restaurant. Y'all paid us good. Like, the people was cool. I was like, who the fucking know?
Shockingly, I felt the exact same way in Tulsa.
Tulsa?
I was like, what the fuck?
The fuck?
I was like, this Bob Dylan museum's gangster.
Will I move it? Do I want to move to Tulsa?
I'm like,
No, I don't. But I'm just saying. But so I'm saying. So like, I don't know. So I feel like some places are getting cooler, and some places. I don't know if we're trying to all be one even-keeled sort of white bread sort of place. I hope not either. But so I don't know. It's a side note. I don't know if that has anything to do with what we're talking about. That was just something I found interesting. It was just like around like 23. I'm like, I don't want to go to San Fran right now. I don't really want to go to New York, and I don't really want to go to Chicago. I was like, but I'll go to Omaha. I'll go to Fayetteville.
Yeah, like I go to this random kind of ducked off place.
You know what I mean?
That's kind of, I mean, obviously I was in Alaska that whole time, but
right. So it's just a weird. I'm just saying, just a weird change.
Yeah.
Of you know, and I'm like, And that's because they're just people are kind of realizing that they don't need to. They don't need to stay in a place that costs them $6,000 a month to live. You know, they can go work from home and
somewhere cheap.
Fayetteville, get a nice ass house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think like when I always like ponder some of the questions when I ask, because I'm not a musician, never will be, but I'm so adjacent to it that I think about it a lot.
Right.
But I also just think about New Orleans a lot, and I think my biggest concern, period, is just the economic viability. What happens when the insurance market actually totally collapses, and how do you continue to sustain? New Orleans will sustain. I'm not really concerned about that, but I'm concerned about like in what way, right? Like it feels like we're almost objectively a city on the downturn. Like and I worry about that. You know, like the last few years we're the fastest losing population of any metro area. Like we don't have a lot of reinvestment. We don't statewide. It's not just a New Orleans thing.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, so now what? But I say all that, but then there's like a sick, twisted part of my head that's like, sometimes I'm like, okay, once we get smacked by one big ass hurricane, I think you lose a lot of the motherfuckers that are just here.
Yeah, it is.
As interlopers.
Possibly.
But
this is the thing.
But I don't really want that either, you know?
So this is the thing, like speaking of that, Louisiana and the brain drain or whatever, like.
Yeah.
So, again, I play a lot of gigs for Tulane alumnus in New York. There's a shitload of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, and a lot of them come from there in the first place, but still, I'm like, damn, so I was doing these, I have a friend, Sally, who's like in charge of the LSU Alumni Association or whatever, right? So they hired us for a few gigs. So we went out to Los Angeles a couple of years ago when the LSU played UCLA, right? So we were there playing in Pasadena for like a big tailgate. I'm like, damn, there's so many LSU fans out here. And they're like, oh yeah. In Southern California, between San Diego and Los Angeles, there's 600,000 LSU alumni. I'm like, how many?
What?
600,000? You know how many in Houston? You know how many LSU alumni live in Houston?
No.
1 million!
Yeah, what am I doing? Okay, thanks for telling me what cities to go to.
1 million!
I know where to be.
Because some of them are 100 years old, but I'm just saying. I'm like, so for 50 years, motherfuckers have just been just graduating from LSU, Tulane, Loyola, UNO, just going to Texas, going to California. And I'm like,
where have I been?
Right, I'm like, what the? Like,
I thought I just went back to New Orleans. That was my experience.
Right.
But no. To the North Shore.
No.
What? Or BR, they stayed in BR.
600,000 people in California.
What the fuck?
With the fucking LSU. Like, what?
Yeah, I would never have done that.
There's more people that went to LSU in Houston than people that went to the University of Texas. Think about that.
That's insane.
So I'm like, well, there you go, right there.
Yeah, I guess that's true. There's the brain drain.
It's been happening, man.
No, one of the interesting things, there's a great book by the scholar Andy Horowitz. It's about, it's called Katrina 1915 to 2015. Basically looks at Katrina as not just this one event. Like we have a bad American habit of being like, oh, God did it. And it's like, no, man did it.
Right.
We fucked this up.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's so interesting to me is like, so pre-Katrina, the state that was the most, I guess, insulated, like the state that was the most from their state was Louisiana. It was something like 90-something% of Louisiana had been in Louisiana and had been in Louisiana for
generations. The problem is all those people are uneducated.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and you run into the problem, and this is unfortunately true, in New Orleans you had that issue of like, look man, if you're first, second generation New Orleanian, even if you're really punching above your weight class, there's going to be like the 6, 7, 8 generation New Orleanian who's going to be like, nah. And that can kind of suck.
For 33 years, I'm still a transplant.
Right. Which is absurd in my brain. I think it's something
I'm like so much a part of the culture,
right?
But it doesn't. I'm still a transplant.
Or the thing I always say is like I don't.
Yeah. Even though I moved here when I was 17, just turned 18, right. And I'm fucking 50, about to be 51, transplant.
Right.
And it's like, and I can't argue about it. I'm like, it's not. You're not wrong. You know what I mean? It's like.
You're like I guess. You know. I mean, it's the thing. Like I don't lead with being like I don't tell most people that I know from New Orleans that I was born in Baton Rouge.
Right.
Because they get weird about it. They're like, oh, you weren't born in Charity? It's like no. Mm-hmm. My fucking family's not from here. I'm literally the only one from here. Like, yeah. and I might be the only one if I don't stay here. You know?
Right, but you know, but it's just a different. It's just different.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I don't. Now we're just talking. I don't think I really have any other.
All right, cool.
I went through my list of questions.